been the Service Manager leading the cultural change for Parramatta City Council's Home Support and Community Service Program with vision and perseverance. Linda Bundle has 12 years experience in volunteer management and also works at Parramatta City Council. So if we can give them a warm welcome, we'll get the workshop underway.
Hello everybody, thank you very much for choosing this particular workshop. I hope it lives up to your expectations and that you actually get something out of it today. So yeah, we're here to talk to you about our journey of culture change, and that's been over a 12-year period, which has seen us move away from the old deficit model within the community services. And what I mean by that is, when we focus on problems, what's wrong with somebody, and then doing things to people and for people, and moving towards the strength-based, person-centred way of working. So what I mean by that is we're taking longer to get to know individuals, because yes, they're individuals, and we're looking at what they can still do. What are their strengths? What do they like to do? And then how can we partner with them to get a better life for them? Now this has resulted in us getting much better outcomes for individuals and therefore higher quality services. So this culture change has involved a staff team of 26 people, and we have a volunteer base of around 140 volunteers. So they help deliver our services. So we will show you, even in a red tape government organisation, significant culture change is not only possible, in fact can be embraced. So with a show of hands, has anyone made culture change before, been involved in it? Yeah, great. Is anyone hoping to make some culture change? A few more people? Is anyone just curious to find out a bit more at this stage? No? No one's in the wrong room? No? Good. Okay. So what are some key reasons do you think that we might need to make some culture change? I'm going to put that out to you guys. Funding? Yep. Regulations? Yep. Things are changing all the time, aren't they? Yep. So I guess, and culture change cannot just be the whole organisation, it can maybe just one department or one section. So perhaps keep in your head the part that you're wanting to change, make that culture change, and at the end of this, we're hoping that you can actually put towards some steps, thinking, okay, I like some of those things, or there's some ideas, then you can actually walk out of here with the start of a little action plan for yourselves, okay? So what we're going to do, so we're going to present on the 3 key elements to successful culture change. So why each of those elements are important, what we did, and then the practical how-to steps that we did it. Now it hasn't all been plain sailing, of course. There is some challenges, so we'll share some of those, and some of our lessons learned. But there's lots of benefits, so we're going to share the good things as well. And then, as I mentioned at the end, you have a chance to start your own action plan.
Okay, so we're going to be a little bit noisy, changing across, but we'll try and be fluid about it. So I'm going to talk to you about why we started this, what made us do this. So in 2004, I started working at Parramatta City Council, and I've been lucky that actually for the first 10 years of my employment life, I'd worked in an organisation that had already made culture change, that was already a high quality service. So I'd worked at Hornsby Challenge for a long time, and been very lucky to have actually been able to learn that model. So coming along to Parramatta City Council was actually really exciting to share just how we can embrace these sorts of culture changes and then to put high quality services in a council. I figured that if I was going to work in a community organisation, wherever it was, I was going to try and implement this there. And I'm still working there. So I haven't quite embedded this yet. I'm not allowed to leave for me until this is embedded. So you can see by the picture though, really the main thing is the story for individuals. This is a picture of Bronwyn, And Bronwyn, when we first started working with her and looking at this new model in 2004, what we were doing with her then was doing a group-based activity with people with disability, that, you know, regular model that people are aware of, community activities, that sort of thing. That was the main thing we did with her for her social support. So through working in this new model, working with her individually, getting to know her, what we've actually been able to find out is all sorts of things about Bronwyn. So what you can see here is a picture of Bronwyn at the races. We never knew she loved horse racing. You don't know these things, do you, till you start to get to know people. So what we did is really looked at all her interests. She was interested in the internet, started getting on Facebook, she wanted to explore that more, got into TAFE, talked about the horse racing. We found her this volunteer, who she now goes to the horse racing regularly. And Bronwyn's someone who I first met her was always in a tracky dacks, to be honest. I mean, this is wonderful, a really different life, you know, getting dressed up, having that really joyous occasion. It's not about the betting so much, but she's really interested in all the different aspects of horse racing. So you can see that her life going from that sort of pretty cloistered once a fortnight activity with people with disability, she doesn't have a lot of family, to really much more broad life that we all want to have. And that's what we're trying to get to with everybody. This culture change was essential, actually, to make this happen for Bronwyn. It wasn't just about implementing a new service model, as you know. You can't just give people that and make it happen. When you're asking people to do something, actually stop doing what you were doing. We were asking people to stop doing what we told them to do the rest of the time. So it took a really big move. You know, it was changing hearts and minds. That's why 12 years. You know, it's not a quick process. But this culture change we're looking at today, what we're going to focus on is the key elements of that. And so those key elements, when we actually look back at what we've done, we found the 3 key elements to this successful culture change, and they make sense when you think about it. Were strong foundations. What are the foundations you're working off? Giving priority to continuous learning and improvement, and embedding the change in the new culture. So what we're going to do is describe how we've implemented these elements and, you know, how they've been really essential for our change.
So why do you think building strong foundations would be important? Sorry? Yeah, that's right. So like when building a house, you know, we need those strong foundations for those windy days, for those storms. Don't say storms? No? Oh, okay. So building a strong culture on strong foundations is for the long-term success and for the resilience of the service.
So what for us actually created our strong foundations? I mean, really the 3 key bits about the strong foundation for us was the right people, the right values, and the right evidence base. And evidence, I think, is a really critical one that we all need to think about. I think often we're off doing things so fast that we forget to reflect on what the research tells us about what's the best way to do things. So I'll show you in a minute some of the evidence bases we use, but they're going to be different wherever you work. So as you can see over here, we hired leadership who understood, had a vision for a different way of working. We adopted a whole bunch of evidence bases, research, best practice, that could underpin what we're doing. We really analysed our values together and worked with the volunteers and the staff about what they were over, quite a lengthy amount of time. We hired staff and volunteers with the right values and mindset. We asked questions in interviews about people's values, trying to really get a sense of where they're coming from. And the whole team worked together with experts to really come up with a new model, question what we're doing over a really long time. What we did was have, external experts come in over a number of years and really work with us. So we worked through a whole load of different dynamics. And then a real commitment to ongoing and continuous improvement. Just quickly, these are just a list of our evidence base. You can see on the left there's a bunch of different social role valorisations, solution focus approach, different things that work for our area. And a number of our values that are really key about the people we support and what we believe about their potential. So that was what we did. How did we actually do those? the interviews to identify values. We really talk quite clearly about our values up front and what they mean. We redefined our mission then based on that. So we all came together and looked at what that mission would be, and that then, the mission then became powerful for us because it was ours. It wasn't just one that comes to the organisation, here's your mission, go forth. We really worked together to bring it together. And as I said, we engaged experts and trainers. In ongoing readings and research is a big part for us, just lots of reading and research constantly to keep thinking about what's the next thing we're doing. And lastly, but most importantly, actually, is the culture. So that culture of questioning, that we're always questioning. We encourage volunteers to question, staff to question, and there's space to do that, I think, is the important thing. You might have an open learning organisation, but if there's not actually time to do that, then that's, something that can make that difficult.
So the second key element was giving priority to continuous learning and improvement. And I know as volunteer managers and volunteers, we all know that this is important, but it's really easy for us to get busy in our everyday tasks, isn't it? So, but continuous learning and improvement, it's the only way we're going to move forward to create those higher quality services. And just to keep up with the fast-paced, changing world, and to keep up with the needs of our ever-changing community.
So we see the format coming out here. What did we do to give priority to continuous learning and improvement? So we did practical things like paid for mentors. We paid for mentors who were really skilled but didn't cost a lot though. We don't have a lot of money like no one does. So we went to universities and looked for people that we knew people who'd been running best practice services. We approached them, we looked at universities, and we were able to come up with situations like I was saying, this mentor we had for 2 years only cost us $4,000 over 2 years. So I mean that's a really cost-effective way to be able to do some learning and have someone to come and question what you're doing. We do a lot of training, internal and external, and again, it doesn't have to be costly. Sending volunteers to external training as well as staff. Having a regular review of policy procedures and position descriptions to check they match the evidence base and the values. So we keep on coming back to that. And regular communication with stakeholders, feedback from people we support obviously is most critical really. If they're not happy with what we're doing at the end of the day, it's all quite meaningless. So the surveys we do and the individual feedback day to day, what's happening in Bronwyn's life, what does that tell us about how it's going? We did pilots and evaluated and reflected together how they went, and really it was about learning what worked, what didn't, and sharing that and go as we went, and really having people we support on board with that, explaining to them, we're in this together and this is something we're trying to create differently together. And people support, that's one of the learners had to put up with that for us for a bit of a time, learning this new way. We created ways to measure what we're doing, which is really critical, and still is very important, obviously, that you can see that difference of what you're doing. And sharing practices, best practice amongst ourselves and externally, but also wanting to know from everyone else. It's not, just about what we're doing. We know we've still got as much to learn from what you're all doing, and we really want to embrace that. So how we did this practically was really we have in our budgets for training, and I know you'll have them, but really prioritising that, so the training budgets for volunteers, and again they don't have to be really expensive, but just trying to think creatively about how you can do that. We do a lot of in-house, getting in experts who will give us pretty good prices to run sessions for volunteers in the way we want things to be done. We have in our induction very clear training plans as for staff and volunteers. Very clear upfront expectations about our values and about where we want to go. And that volunteers do attend training meetings, which is, can be challenging at times. And that will mean some volunteers won't want to be with us, and that's okay. And some mandatory training as well, just to get us all to a certain line with this work. How do we do this? So, as I was saying, making time in meetings for reflection. So our meeting agendas have on them key learnings. So what training do people go to? What were the key learnings? Would you recommend others go to it? what do we implement from here? We also have on the best practice research and articles that we're reviewing from people who have read, what training, what are we going to implement again, what's working, what's not, and again showcasing the stories of the new model.
And then the third key element was actually embedding the changes and the new culture. So this is important to ensure it just becomes habit and it becomes the new normal way of doing things, so that the changes can continue beyond the existing staff and the existing leadership.
As I was saying at the beginning, I think embedding for me was probably the most critical, but you can come along and work really hard with people to change something, but if then you all leave, that's our fear, if we all leave, what happens? And so that was the big question, what do we do with council, this new person's integrated, and it's still, we don't have all the answers yet, we're still trying to find ways, so these are the things we've worked out so far, and as I said, I haven't left yet, because we haven't totally worked. So again, continually checking what we're doing reflects the evidence-based and values. Again, it's coming back to that. You're always looking at evidence-based, you're always looking at your values. And that's not to say that evidence-based and values won't change. They'll change as well. They'll grow and change as there's new evidence and new things that you learn. And an ongoing focus on the measurement of outcomes, so that you need to go to sell your story at the end of the day, whether it's to your council or externals or whatnot, or funders. We wrote this book, which we've got about 20 copies of today. And look, it's just a book about our journey. So we've actually got a link to it as well on the last slide, which is on our website. So if anyone wants a copy of that, I'm happy to give them out. And you know that what you measure is what you focus on as well. So for us, I don't know if you're funded as well. We have funding, but a lot of funded services require you to count bottoms on seats largely, rather than outcomes for people. So yes, we still have to count that, bottoms on seats, but we're doing a lot of counting other things as well, and trying to give that evidence to other people. So we count, the number of valued roles that people, new valued roles people have, the number of new skills people have learned, new meaningful relationships, so some of the things that we count as well. Okay, and look, again, we've regularly reviewed ongoing communication with stakeholders. You can see that the same themes coming back through with these. It's that ongoing communication and feedback. The other things, council-wide, though, would be really important. So influencing, trying to see where council-wide we can influence policies to get our evidence-based and our values in them. What we've done is we have our policy on access and equity, and we've been able to get into that, saying that service delivery in council for these services for older people with disability must be evidence-based. So we're very happy about that. It means that, I guess, no one can come along and throw out what we've done without at least replacing it with something else that is based on evidence. And I think that's pretty important. We've also done submissions and consultations with different governing bodies, again just embedding, and things like today's embedding, again, what we've been doing. So how do we do this? Look, I think, the biggest thing is actually keeping people supported at the focus of what we do. It's an interesting dynamic about when and I'm sure you've been in this, when you work in a higher quality service, you get more motivated, which then leads you to focus more on the people, which you do a better job, so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is wonderful. So really all of our thinking is about the people we support. We get so excited about the stories, even if it's not someone I know. Tell me, what was the story they had with Bronwyn? What's the latest with, this person? That's what keeps us going, so that focus on people. And look, embedding, as I said, it's been slow. It's taken a whole lot of perseverance. We've been, because of, I think, this work we've done, we've had very low staff turnover, and that's really helped to be able. So what the skills we've developed in the staff, the volunteers, have been able to sustain, and then those people become mentors for new people coming in. So it builds on itself. Humour's been really important. I mean, we early on would go out to people's schools and say, "Tell us your dreams. What are you dreaming about?" The whole visioning bit. And we're like, "What? Come on, you just do my dusting and bring my meal." teamwork's been really critical. I mean, the big thing with this is that mostly it's teamwork for us. We know that we can best serve the people we support by bouncing off each other, actually. So once I've gone and seen someone, I come back and talk about how that went. Others will have some clues about what might work better, what might. And so that's been really helpful. That's really built into every team meeting. They reflect together and look at cases and work together as a team. So that's wonderful because you don't have to feel isolated and feel like you have to know everything. It's really strength-based for the staff as well as the people we support. Obviously, we've had the support of the organisation. I think, when you're talking to your organisation about moving to best practice services, it's hard for them to knock it back, honestly. If you sell it in that way. So the organisation's been very supportive, and we've put ourselves up for nominations through the local government, awards, things, that sort of thing, and that's the council really likes that. And again, the low turnover of staff has really helped embed this. Some really practical things though, we've actually had to do some restructures to make this happen. So we found that the old structures we had didn't match the new model we were trying to implement. But through that restructure, what we did was we worked as a team of 26 over about 9 months to work out together what that would look like. So I didn't go in a room and go, this is who's staying and who's going. We worked out together what that would look like, so everyone again had to buy in with that. We continue, as I said, continue to talk about what we do, why it's important to all the stakeholders. And new services that came in, a whole bunch of new services, and they will continue to do, I think, as you get the new evidence. So for example, we've started taking on the solution-focused approach, which I know some of you use in your areas. And that's just a new evidence base coming up that seems to make sense for the work we do.
So just with that embedding, Robin Moore was fantastic this morning, wasn't she? And something she said was, hold the source in your heart. And I think that's really what we do, is we always hold those values and hold, what we want, why do we come to these kind of jobs? So it's holding that source in your heart when you work. So the challenges, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Challenges was the existing mindset of existing staff and existing volunteers. Also the people we support. So for like Bronwyn, who only had, once a fortnight, her parents were like, I get 5 hours kind of respite. That person goes out for 5 hours. So it wasn't just changing the mindset of staff, it was changing the mindset of the families and the people we support as well. Obviously, we actually don't meet our outputs, and that's funding. So that's a challenge. So instead we measure outcomes, and then we need to be really good at selling the value of outcomes to our funding bodies so we still get some funding. So it's always that continual thing, and I know that you guys know that's a continual challenge as well. So lessons learnt, things take time. Things do take perseverance. And because everyone is unique, there's not one magic tool. There's not one magic form. There's not one magic way of doing everything. Everyone's unique. So that's a lesson learnt, and also a challenge, I guess. So staff and volunteers have to be flexible. They have to be comfortable with being a bit uncomfortable. You don't have one way that you always work with people. You need to get to know them and see, okay, let's just be flexible and see how I'm going to need to work with that person and how they need to be supported. And honestly, we did lose a few of our long-term volunteers. We didn't lose a lot, but we have lost a few over time, and that might have been from not wanting to come to training that we're really wanting them to come to, or just thinking, no, I think I've been in this long enough and I'm not willing to keep moving in the direction that they want to move. But the upside of that is that we've got some fresh blood, fresh insights, really motivated, really enthusiastic volunteers coming through it. some more lessons learned is it's really important to get all the different stakeholders on the same page throughout. And so that takes time. So when Julie's going, government's at all these levels, so when she's going to that meeting and getting her manager on board to get to that, we need all the different stakeholders on our page for actual change to be embedded. And another lesson learned and challenge is it does take lots of resources that you're putting into individual staff and into volunteers. So potentially they could walk out the door. Or, volunteers that, I'm sorry, I've suddenly got a job. So it's that risk. The challenge is always, we do get sent to a lot of training, and it's the balance of staff at training versus staff with the people we support and helping them get their outcomes. So it's always that balance as well, and that's a challenge. And probably maybe we have a higher training budget than some other organisations, and how do we keep competitive? So that's a challenge as well. Now, the advantages to successful culture change and higher quality services is, like Julie said, we get to see the changes in people. Like when you're seeing the outcomes for people, that's really motivating. We're also attracting more skilled and more motivated volunteers. So perhaps because we are with council, I get a lot of inquiries from people wanting to volunteer. So I get about 20 to 30 volunteers inquiries a month, and we probably only take 2 or 3 of those. So we can actually wait for the right volunteers, and we're getting a good reputation, I guess, of volunteers want to come and volunteer with us. And in our information sessions we're holding, they're so eager by the end of it. They're just, I really want to be in this team, I really want to volunteer with you guys, and that's amazing. As Julie mentioned, we have had a low turnover of staff and low turnover of volunteers as well. And it's the highest satisfaction rates from people we support, but also from their families and actually from other caseworkers. So they're seeing that, I never knew that was possible for mum or my daughter. I never knew they could do that. And when you hear that the changes that they're witnessing, even after they've seen them for 10 or 15 years in a certain state, and now they're realising they could do more, that's pretty amazing as well. So that is our motivated team of staff, that picture. So one of the advantages is keeping people independent. And this is a cost thing, isn't it? So moving people into residential care is very expensive. So keeping people independent longer, and when you actually start building their confidence to go back outside again, to perhaps catch public transport and build up their skills and confidence around things again, they actually need less services, so it's actually cheaper in the long run. It's a community service requirement for us to move into this person-centred model. So the advantage is, tick, we're doing that. And the advantage is that we can remain flexible to meet the needs of customers in the future. Okay, so now it's your turn. We put on your table, is there any questions, burning questions before we go into the action plan? So we're going to the action plan. So hopefully you've maybe thought a couple of little light bulb moments of, maybe I could do that step. And you might need to think about, well, where are you at the moment in your culture change? Do you need to do more of that, building that strong foundation? Or have you got some of your good foundation and you need to put more of the priority into the learning, the continuous improvement, or just more of the same, more of the embedding things. So on your action plan, you can write at the top, is it the organisation? Is it, which area you wanting to change? Might be a department. Right, just 3 things. What step do you think you're going to implement? By when? You might think, okay, this is going to take time. This might be a 6-month step. Or this is something, no, I can go and have a conversation with my manager, and that can be a next week. And then if you put why, that's important, because when you've got a strong why behind your step, that will make you more motivated to actually follow through with that. So how will that actual step, how is that going to be important? And then if you rate yourself on a scale from 0 to 5, so 0 being you've never done that step before, to 5 being always, so you might want to rate yourself 0 or 2, and that's how you can see progress. And then we've probably got a few minutes left. So you can do this individually, or you might want to chat to people if you know people at your table. Brainstorm what your strategies are to achieve.